Hello everybody, my name's Zoe and my second round match is called Benford Needs You. This pitch involves audience participation. I need you to do something for me. And what I need you to do has got something to do with this newspaper. There's something special about this newspaper. It tells us that the England football team are through to the semi-final of a World Cup. But it's also interesting if you read it more closely and look at the frequency of certain things. So, for example, on the first 4 pages of the sports section, the word Harry comes up more times than the word football. But that's also not it. I've actually been looking at the numbers that come up in the text, and in particular, the first digits or leading digits of those numbers. So I found 200 numbers from across the Observer on Sunday the 8th of July, and I looked at what their first digits were, and with that information, I made this chart. So the number 1 appears way more times than any other number. Number 2 appears quite a lot too, and number 8 and 9 don't appear very much at all. And if you've not seen this before, you might be quite surprised by it. I certainly was the first time I saw it. If asked, I probably would have predicted that the leading digits would be evenly distributed, so they would each appear about the same number of times. Probably about 1/9 of the time, or about 11% of the time. I would have been surprised by this chart. But there's a bit of maths called Benford's law, which is what this match is about, which is what the live experiment that you're going to be taking part in is all about, which tells us that this distribution is exactly what we should expect. And in fact, that newspaper isn't special at all. That is, apart from the headline. So the green bars below show the exact percentages that Benford's law predicts. You can see there's a 30% chance that the leading digit of your number will be a 1, which is really surprising. And my chart wasn't too far off, although it does look like I've got more 1s, 2s and 3s than we would expect. A lot of the pages I was using were sports pages with football scores on them, where those scores didn't go much above 3 goals. So maybe that has something to do with it. But what I'd really like to do is to get a distribution from a real life set of data that fits Benford's law a little bit better than that one did. And we're going to need a type of data that spans multiple orders of magnitude. And so if you all told me your height in metres, for example, well that wouldn't work because everybody is a metre and a bit or something like that. But if you told me the population of a place, well that would span lots of orders of magnitude. If you told me the population of a village, that could be in the hundreds, but the population of a city could be in the millions. And so that's what we're going to do. So you need to go to this website and put in this code, or click on the link below, and then you'll be asked to vote for the leading digit of the population of the place you were born in. And you can interpret place however you want. It could be village, town, or country. It's up to you. Whatever comes into your head first. Just Google the current population of that place, and then vote for its leading digit. Below this video is a chart that will update in real time. So as more and more people vote, we'll be able to see Benford's distribution take form. Obviously, the more people that vote, the better that distribution will be. At the moment, I'm the only person who's taken part. I was born in the UK, and the population begins with a 6. So get everyone to get involved and we'll get a good Benford's distribution. In the meantime, you might be wondering why Benford's law works. So I'm going to have a go at explaining that now. Okay, so you can see I've drawn a street with 9 houses above. And that's because to explore Benford's law, we're going to have a look at a few different sizes of data sets. And so my first data set is house numbers for a street with houses 1 to 9. And obviously in this data set, the probability that the leading digit is 1 is going to be 1 out of 9, or 11%. But if I then add a 10th house into my data set, there we go, then my chance of getting a 1 as the leading digit has increased to 2/10. And if I added an 11th house, this would continue. My probability is now 3/11. And when I've got to the end of the teens, down to house 19, then my chance now of getting a 1 is really quite high, so it's 11 out of 19. But then when we add a 20th house, we decrease the probability again, because we've added another house to the total, but not increased the number of houses that begin with a 1. So that's our probability of getting a house that begins with a 1 at the moment. And the same thing happens if we add more houses into the 20s, that probability will decrease. When we've added houses up to house 29, then you can see that the number of houses that begin with a 1 is the same as the number of houses that begin with a 2, but there are far fewer houses that begin with the other numbers. So our probability of getting a house that begins with a 1 must be higher than 1/9 at this point. And it's not until we've filled up all the columns of all of the houses, until we're down to house 99, that our probability of getting 1 goes back down to being 1/9, because at this point there's the same number of houses beginning with each number, and that's the lowest that probability is ever going to be. And that's because when you then go into the next order of magnitude, in this case 100, the first number you come to begins with a 1. And so you're then increasing the probability that your leading digit will be a 1, and that whole cycle starts again. So you can see that the size of the data set makes a difference for the chance that the leading digit will be a 1. And what Benford's law does is it takes an average of this fluctuating probability, and that's where 30% comes from. Because if you think about it, the smallest probability is 1/9, and most of the other probabilities are higher than 1/9, then that average is going to be higher than 1/9. And the same thing is done to find the chance of the leading digit being a 2 and a 3 and so on. But then for my newspaper example, the numbers were chosen from lots of different sets of data, and some of those data sets definitely didn't span multiple orders of magnitude. For example, the football scores. And this is what's really cool about Benford's law, is that the overall distribution that you get when you choose numbers from lots of different data sets will then itself follow Benford's law. And that's why that newspaper example works. So this has been Benford Needs You. Take part in my experiment by clicking on the link and voting, and then go and have a look at the chart as it takes form in real time. Hopefully we'll see a good Benford's distribution. I hope you found Benford's law as fascinating as I do.